When last we left the players, they had just reached Aljalima and had having received word about a massive, unstoppable force that had been unleashed by Yurak against the Illuvian invasion. See, at the last point of the war, the Illuvians were winning so single-handedly, in fact, that it was predicted the war would end within a matter of weeks at the outside. Unfortunately, Yarak retaliated with an entire army of Tuskers. For those of you who are not fully familiar with the lore of this setting, Tuskers are massive and powerful and terrifying. They are some of the strongest creatures in this setting. With this push, the Yarak forces were able to really shove Alluvia back. Not too long afterwards, the party encountered Toltarn of Aljalima, the governor thereof, who asked them, in as polite and nice of a way as he could, to please deal with this nightmarish threat that was a threat to absolutely everyone. The party said they would do what they could. They were also given official documents to indicate that they were operating on behalf of Aljalima officially, so that they could actually treat, if need be. This led very shortly to them organizing a situation where they coordinated with the mites of the hub in order to teleport directly to Yurak. Take a huge amount of time off the journey, but of course they would be going there sans any actual backing. It would just be the three of them. No airship, no troops, no support, no nothing. It didn't take particularly large amount of convincing to get the mites to get them there, but because, after all, the way the hub works is it sends to another hub. The other hub just has to be there. It doesn't have to be active. There doesn't have to be anyone at the other end, accepting the transport. So once they arrived, to imagine their surprise when they found the hub there fully active and operational, with a large number of people working on it, including some mites and some orcs and some banderlings and a few other creatures, but the most important ones were two really big ones. First of all, there were humans there. Now, for those of you who don't fully remember the significance of that, remember the only humans that have been seen thus far in this setting are the ones from Aphis Lacell and the ones from Vasayan Lacell. Now, at last check, the Aphis Lacell humans had been conquered, along with the rest of Aphis Lacell, by the Tumarok. Similarly, Vasayan Lacell had been conquered by the Tumarok, and the Olthoi had successfully managed to evacuate the vast majority of the humans off of the island in several passes, thanks to the aid of their new psionic airship, the Spurka. Having done all this, therefore, the fact that humans are here is very puzzling, although the party just kind of shrugs at it naturally, and they immediately deal with the immediate problem, which is the giant creatures that are threatening them. Large, mechanical-looking golems. None of them look exactly identical to each other. They all are fairly humanoid and have somewhat similar features, but they're made of different metals, they have different designs. Some of them have paintings or tattoos on them, some of them have gems built into them. All of them have a completely unique and different appearance from the others. The only similarity is the fact that they all carry certain stripes of a coloring. These colors include black, red, yellow, blue, and green. Now, the party quickly deduces that the red-striped ones are the ones that are communicative. Whether the other ones can talk or not is debatable. Zariel very quickly determines that the red ones are the only ones who can talk at all, and therefore the only ones worth her time. The Sentinels approach them, and they face a very quick question. Do they flee or do they fight? Well, as you might imagine, for this party, they decide on a third option. They decide to talk. So they talk their way out of the situation and pretend as if they are here on behalf of the various organizations that sent them, including Aljalima itself. Uncertain exactly how to take this, the Sentinels go ahead and carry them inside into the Grand Government Building. Now, a little bit of backstory really quick. Yarak used to be the capital of the Nevaria Confederacy. Now, it was a true confederacy. The states basically were autonomous, other than the fact that they coordinated with regards to external affairs. The primary government building is actually specifically built for those foreign affairs. It was a place that was incredibly opulent, built of place. There was literally, quite literally, the scent of gold in the air. They actually had gold-scented spritzers, which would spray just a little bit of gold dust into the air. This place was incredibly opulent, done so in order to impress foreigners, to show them the incredible might and wealth of the Nevaria Confederacy. They were brought in and taken before the governor, the former governor technically, but still acting governor of Yarak. If you give me a moment, I'll pull up his name. I actually meant to do this earlier, but it's kind of late and I'm a little tired, so I haven't actually pulled everyone's names up just right now. This governor treated them cordially, asked them what they were doing here. They said they were here about the Tuskers. He said he really didn't have anything to do with that. And there was some polite back and forth that didn't really lead anything to anything. Until at a certain point in the middle of the meeting, Snarg had a letter slipped to him, which, when he read it later, said fairly simply and conclusively, "Help. Help, help. Please help. Oh God, help." I am paraphrasing slightly, but that is effectively what the letter said. Here we go. Excuse me. Arnoth of Slayer, a Banderling. He is the one who is the governor of Yurak. Now, Arnoth of Slayer, he dismisses them. They go back to their rooms, and shortly thereafter, they're like, okay, we got to do something about this. Zariel, of course, wants to check out the weaving on the area. This is one of the most heavily woven areas she's ever seen in her life. They literally have woven faucet taps that will dispense different types of water depending on how you activate it. And, of course, there are listening devices everywhere. Snarg, after some fairly difficult rolls, manages to sneak his way out of the room and actually make his way over to the barracks, where he finds the specific gentleman that gave him the "help, help, oh God, help, please" message. This actually amuses his GM quite a bit, since that message was not actually originating from him. He was kind of the go-between. Nevertheless, he quickly informs Snarg, no problem. He knows Snarg is an ally, after all, and he treats Snarg as if he's an ally, because he's part of the Directorate. For those of you who do not recall, the very name Directorate is such a rare thing that I'd actually be a little bit surprised if my viewers understand the significance of that statement, with the way I just stated it. The Directorate is the name for the combined organization of all the militaries of the 4 primary nations. In other words, all of the military of the show, all of the military of the Neveri, the traditional career military, along with certain key figures amongst Alluvia and Osteth, join together and unite purpose to, well, the party's not actually 100% certain what they're after. Even still. Nevertheless, they're definitely up to something, and their desire to impose a degree of order on the world is probably going to lead it towards some kind of world conquest goals, something along those lines. But even knowing the name Directorate would oust you immediately as a spy or some such. In fact, Zeist nearly got executed for dropping the name Directorate, because there was no way he could be anything other than a spy. No deception check would surpass that. No one knows that name. So, any Directorate agent usually identifies themselves as one of the members of the 4 military, which they were originally a part of, so it's not even that much of a lie. This agent, however, flat out tells Snarg it's okay. He is also a Directorate agent, because the Directorate is treating the party as if they are allies at this point in time, thanks to Zariel's manipulations back in Aljalima. Way to go, Zariel. Having learned of this, Snarg, not entirely certain what to do about this, since he's still trying to figure out some solution to the Tusker threat, heads back to his room to find Lunacha of Seeker. I don't have to look up her name. Lunacha of Seeker is the Prime Minister of the Neveri Confederacy. Now, it is worth noting at this point in time, the Neveri Confederacy effectively doesn't exist. It is simply the states. However, she is the woman who was the Prime Minister for a fairly long amount of time. And she is a very accomplished politician. She informs him in no uncertain terms that she is looking to buy his loyalty, because she believes he is that kind of a person. She does not mean that as an insult, quite the contrary. She actually is more than willing to furnish him with whatever he requires for him and his tribe. But she also knows that his loyalty has already been put out on the open market, and she implies she knows about his hidden benefactors, although I don't believe she mentioned that she knows exactly who is pulling his strings at the moment. You, the audience, of course, are well aware that it's a woman. A horrible, horrible, evil woman. Whose name I gotta look up. I can't believe I gotta look this up. She's one of the major characters. I'm very tired, forgive me. And her name... She's a member of the Daracost. She is the leader of the family that Tabrin, a lycanthrope who used to be in the party, was a part of. Vasmora, the Lady Vasmora. So the Lady Vasmora has been the one coordinating with Snarg in his thoughts. And this woman, Lunacha of Seeker, who is just a Banderling, it is worth noting, wishes to purchase that loyalty from him. Snarg just goes to bed. He's just like, "Ugh, tired of this. I don't want to deal with any of this anymore." It is worth noting that by circumstance, Zariel ends up listening in on this entire conversation. Not too long after, they wake up and are debating what exactly to do with themselves when they hear the sounds of battle in the distance. And their first thought is, oh, we got to get the hell away from that. However, after some significant convincing and some bacon, they finally manage to wake up, head out, and they find out that there is a ship battle happening right now in the harbor. Now, it's only a single ship fighting a single other ship. The thing the party never picked up on was the unusual fact that Yarak had one ship, one small ship, no less, like a schooner-sized, defending the entire Yarak docks. The ship attacking, it took Snarg considerable time to identify, but after quite a great deal of effort and time, he recognized it as a psionic ship, at least in design. He didn't know the ship personally. They did spy on it quite a bit, and get the eyeglass up and all that. And they discovered it had a multiracial crew, a fairly large number of Mossworts and Banderlings, and elves and Burun, and all sorts of creatures, all sorts of races. Not wasting any time, the party then basically decided to go ahead and attack the defending ship. So they borrowed a speedboat and aimed straight for it. That turned out to be a bad idea. The defending ship apparently decided that they were a threat since they were speeding straight towards it, and blew them out of the water, completely destroying the speedboat they just purchased. They then used Snarg's geomancy powers in order to swoosh through the water and up into what appeared to be some kind of launch bay underneath the ship. Arriving within, however, they were expecting to be able to work in, find whatever the crew was, and deal with them. But they were just in an empty bay with these weird hatches and these unusual sounds they didn't quite understand. And there were no people. They were in there for quite a while, doing whatever they could to try and get out. Finally, Snarg realized he could use his geomancy powers once more, and if he rolled really, really well, or say maximized it, he could blow a hole up into the ceiling, which he did so. Now this, up into the ceiling, they saw this weird lightning arcing all around. Zariel was actually tossed up into it. Took a lot of damage from it, too. And when she came back down, she was like, okay, we need to not do this anymore. For some reason, though, the ship seemed to be kind of tilting a little bit. Not too long afterwards, they decided to translate to the very top of the ship, once again looking for some kind of window or bridge, some way to get inside the ship and find the crew. But there were no such things. No bridge, no window, no signs of any life whatsoever, and the ship was sinking further and further into the water. It took very little additional time for the party to decide to get the hell out of Dodge. They managed to make their way back to the shore, right about in time for the ship to explode. Now, it didn't explode until it was actually underneath the waves, but the resulting explosion hit most of the surrounding docks area with a splash of water and a few dozen dead fish. The attacking ship, the psionic ship, retreated and did not do anything else. For some reason, the party was immediately absconded upon by several sentinels who insisted they go with them. They were dragged in front of Lunacha Seeker again. She said flat out that she was aware of the fact that they had just attacked her, that is to say their, boat, but she didn't care about any of that. She understands how this works. She is someone who, and the people who are her benefactors, are people who are very politically powerful. They have resources, they have information, they have contacts. The party is very personally powerful. The two make a natural pair, and she wants to buy their loyalty, to get them to work for her and her benefactors, to work for the great Yarak state. The party hems and haws and basically dances around asking the question, right up until, so there's a little bit of a thing here. So she naturally assumed Snarg was actually the leader of the group. Guido took bodyguard position, and Zariel kind of lied her way into, I'm just a bystander. So Snarg decided to treat her as if she's some Joe Schmo customer, literally handing her a pamphlet for the Blood Fox, his mercenary corps, his PMC, and then said, yeah, you can contact us here. As you might imagine, she took tremendous insult from this and dismissed him with rancor. Not long afterwards, the party found themselves being followed by someone. Zariel actually had difficulty discovering this guy. That's how good he was. He was a very good spy. And she immediately was like, ooh, I want him. She didn't want to kill him. She didn't want to send him off. She wanted to capture him and convert him to her cause because she wants people who are significantly skilled. She managed to petrify him and then try to escape in the chaos. The dice didn't quite go their way on this, and they ended up fleeing through the streets of Yarak, carrying a petrified gentleman and trying to dodge the sentinels. Unfortunately, what happens next is that Zariel and Snarg abandoned Guido, translated back to the Maiden's Deceit, and left Guido on his own in Yarak. What happened next is so the next episode is difficult because I keep bouncing between what is effectively three different perspectives. But what happens next is, so from Guido's perspective, he runs in this mad dash through the city, and he's terrified and horrified and trying desperately to get away, and is trying to manifest his powers. And this is the exact moment which his oracle powers finally manifest. Oracle is a prestige class I designed, which is basically RNG the class. You don't cast any given spell. You cast spell, roll a dice to see which spell it is, and roll another dice to see what the effect of that spell is. It's a fun class. I'm actually really proud of it. But it is definitely RNG, the class. So one of his random spells manifests. He and I talked about this in advance. And this spell causes quite a bit of collateral damage. He then literally charges through a wall with his evil, horrific horse thing of doom, charges into the governor's office and demands sanctuary. Now, the way sanctuary works in this setting, it's actually never been brought up before. Basically, for him to do sanctuary, all of his debts, crimes, consequences, all of that would immediately be transferred to the person who gave him sanctuary, and in return, he effectively becomes a slave. He loses most of his rights as an individual, most of his right to think for himself or act for himself, and everything he does. It's not quite slave. That's really the wrong term. He basically becomes the other person becomes their guardian, their legal guardian, and are fully responsible for them, and also has the right to tell them to do basically whatever, just like a parent would to a child. That kind of a relationship. So, after some thought, the governor, whose name I have already forgotten, it's okay, I wrote it down right here, Arnoth of Slayer, he accepts. He accepts his offer in exchange for clemency, personally uses his own influence in order to wipe away the massive criminal acts that Guido just did, and says, all right, Guido, here's what I demand of you. I demand that you formally join the Directorate, and that you act as one of our agents henceforth. And Guido accepts, because of course he does. About this point in time, Snarg and Zariel, over on the Maiden's Deceit, are interrogating their spy. Shortly thereafter, they discover that he has the ability to self-destruct, quite literally. Snarg also uses his Analyze ability on him, and the thing that he randomly got from Analyze was his technical knowledge. His knowledge of technology. Snarg immediately then rushes off to his room and starts writing down as many schematics as he can before he forgets them, because as soon as the spell wears off, it's all gone. He can't even remember that stuff anymore. That's how Analyze works. Having determined this, they really abuse this poor spy. They are not doing a really good job of trying to convince him to join them. And he gets a little irritated by them, and sort of misleads them in a few ways, and some bad stuff happens. And long story short, it turns out there's an attack force on behalf of Yarak, which is heading towards Fox Ridge to wipe Fox Ridge off the map. Snarg gets passage up to Fox Ridge, and this is where we split firmly into three parties. Only for a bit, though. Snarg in Fox Ridge spends some time basically building up the defenses of in preparation for a big battle. I hate to summarize it like that. It was actually really fun stuff. He shared some cool ideas. He was going to basically make like traps, geomancy traps, and try to use the terrain to his advantage. A bunch of creative stuff. I really liked it. Unfortunately, Zariel, who kept talking with the spy, basically talked him into calling off the attack. And after many hours, that actually happened off camera, when they were traveling in the Maiden's Deceit back to Yarak, they picked up Snarg, and then the ship traveled back to pick up Guido. Over that time, the gentleman spent a long time discussing things with Zariel and basically managed to sort of persuade her onto his side of thinking, to work for his benefactors, the people behind Iraq. Having accomplished all this, they reach Iraq and they convene and discuss things. And I feel like this should be a bigger plot reveal than it is, but I'll go ahead and just drop this. I'm sure you all guessed it already. The mysterious benefactors, the ones who control the Tusker army, and the ones who have been in control of Yarak since God knows when, are the Vyotians. Now, I really hope you know who those are, because that's going to be a lot less important, impacting of a reveal if you don't even know who they are. The Vyotians have been name-dropped several times with regards to several seemingly unconnected events across the entire continent. They sabotaged several events in Yarak that the party encountered. They were responsible for the assassination of the Undermarket and the Undermarket's leadership. And they've cropped up a few other times since then. Zeiss and his group, who are kind of on hold right now. Zeiss has actually taken a very long vacation, months-long vacation. And I've been trying to catch up with features on the show, so I've kind of put the campaign on hold for a bit. But the point at which they're at right now is they basically consider both of them, both Zeiss's group and Rory's group, consider the Vyotians to be their primary antagonists. So the Vyotians are in charge of Yarak. And the party joins the Vyotians. Yes, really. That's basically caught up at this point. So the next episode, we're going to be discussing some of the more, we'll be showing you some of the more serious ramifications of that discussion. And let's just say we're going to see a lot of political hoo-ha happening over the next several sessions. And then I will describe everything for you in my next Concerning Primus. Hope you've had fun, guys. See you around.